So the real goal here is not to trip and completely embarrass myself with all these cables. So I've been working now I run a center that's almost twice as old as Tisch, and so we feel we're really old. And our real goal is to try and change how kids are educated. And in particular, what we're really interested in is bringing creativity into the classroom. And the way we tend to do this is through engineering. And so you can see we've developed materials that young kids or adults use. Same materials, same hardware, same software, but even the same problems, but different approaches depending on your age and your learning ability. So why do we need more people learning engineering? Well, I'm sure all of you have been following Japan very closely. How much do you see about the 10,000 people that have died, the cities that have disappeared, the other 10,000 are still missing? And how much do you see about radiation poisoning? And how big a deal is the radiation poisoning? How much do you understand about the numbers they're telling you, about the units that they're showing you, and how that affects you? Very little. And unfortunately, the real tragedy of Japan is the cities and the people that have died. So far, no one's died of the nuclear radiation problems, and probably not a whole lot of people will. But we don't teach any of this in our schools. We have energy crises every 30, 40 years because people don't understand that we can't solve the energy problem in a 4-year term of a single president. That it's going to take research for many, many years for us to solve the problem. So these are the things that we're trying to do. And unfortunately, if we look at the math and the science curriculum and the engineering curriculum that's in the classroom, this is the kind of response you tend to get. Why? Because they're not really actually learning science. They're learning how to memorize. They're learning facts that were found by others, scientists that really were excited about doing what they were doing. So how can we change that? And how do we currently solve it? Well, we start kids out in a very open-ended, enthusiastic learning environment where they work in teams. The teacher doesn't know the answer to the problems they're trying to solve, and they work together to try and figure out if their answer is good. We slowly merge them to an area, something like this, where you're all sitting and you're listening. God knows what's actually going through your mind. Maybe 30% of you are actually listening to me. 10 years from now, what will you remember? That I had a stunning red shirt on, or the stuff that I'm actually talking about? And so how can we change that as well? And how can we bring some more of this open-ended exploration into all levels? And so what we believe at the center is really that 3 things, that every child is a natural engineer. If you think about it, children love to create things. They expect to fail, which is an integral part of engineering and a very small part of our school system. They fail again and again. When you learn to ski, you fall all the time, and no one thinks that's a problem. Why can't we fall all the time as we're learning math and science? Teachers are an integral part of the classroom. We can't replace them with computers. We can't replace them with distance learning. They're the ones that are enablers, that are enabling the kids to learn, that are exciting the kids to learn, that are scaffolding the learning, that are asking the questions. So we can't remove them. We have to help them change what they're doing in the classroom. And then the last one is the environment makes a huge difference. If I have chairs sitting like this, more than likely none of you are going to say anything during my talk. If I had tables and a laser cutter and maybe some woodworking material and some stuff up here that you could play with, all of a sudden you'd be involving more senses than just your ears and your ears and your eyes. All of a sudden your hands would be moving. And not only will you learn the material better, but you'll retain it for a longer amount of time. In fact, we've done some very interesting studies that have shown the retention is substantially better. Which brings up the next part that we do a lot with, is really we've got to stop teaching based on hunches and start teaching based on science. So if you think about the medical profession about 100 years ago, we tended to do medicine based on hunches. It was easy to become a doctor. It was a 1-year training program, and you'd go around and you'd heard this story, or you'd seen this before, or your uncle had told you this, and that's how you medicated the person. And in the turn of the century, they changed all that. They removed most of the medical schools. They turned it into a 5-year plus apprenticeship program, and they started science behind medicine. So they started the Dana-Farber Institute to look just at cancer. So when are we going to get the Dana-Farber Institute that looks just at how kids interact with the world around them, or learn to predict in science, or learn to engineer? So that's some of the stuff that we're working on. In general, the research shows that everybody learns differently. There is no one right way to teach. There is no silver bullet. You've got to come up with an environment that allows people to learn in many different ways. The things that we try and do at the center is first, teaching through listening. That is, listen to what the student has in his or her mind. What are they thinking? What is their model? And build off of that instead of telling them what is right or what is wrong. The second is teaching through building. Let the kids build and explain their models that they have in their head through what they construct. And then, of course, the last one is what we tend to do, which is what I'm doing right now, is teaching through telling. So I want to show you some examples of how we go about this. SAM is some software we developed. Stop Action Movies is what it stands for. It's another way for the kid to tell me their story. So in this case, this was a fourth grader that did a book report on the Artemis Fowl books. How many people here have read Artemis Fowl? Oh, man. That's very nice. You guys got to go read them. They're very good. Anyway, here's the preview for the third book in case you ever wanted to watch it. Here's a case with a high school teacher up in New Hampshire that asked the kids to explain to him what temperature was through these movies. Or this was a fourth grade class explaining the phase of the moon. And so SAM now has been downloaded at over 30,000 different computers around the world, and there's a vibrant community sharing these different things. You can go online and see them. I just wanted to share with you one more, which is you don't really need to talk about the real world. You can actually use SAM to redefine the world. So these are my two boys and a guy who works for me. What you do is you take the camera and you point it downward, and you then move around on the floor. What you can see is that if I change the way that you tell me your story, all of a sudden, school is pretty fun. This is pretty cool. I'm going to share it not only with my teacher, but I'm going to share it with my friends, my parents, and I start talking about my school at the dinner table, and all of a sudden now school has changed from something I don't really want to do to something that is actually pretty exciting. So I want to talk quickly in the remaining 3 minutes about through building, trying to teach through building. So this is work we do with Lego in terms of building Lego robots. And you can make robots that can drive. That's pretty old hat. This is actually a Lego robot that cooks hamburgers for you. This was built by some 7th graders in Switzerland. They very proudly sent it to me. And now they've made everything from cake makers to hot chocolate makers as well. This is just to show you that you don't necessarily need to move with wheels. You can move with alternative modes. This is a sloth, for those of you who haven't recognized it. This was built by a high school teacher in Tasmania. Or, I mean, as I say, anybody can do the robot that moves, but what if we actually have, oops, I went forward a page. What if we actually have a robot that records something? So let's record our acceleration. All of a sudden now, I can run a program on this, and it's measuring the acceleration. So as I throw this to Amos, luckily he caught it, it actually measures its own acceleration as it's flying through the air. I can go back, connect it up, and I can get my data back. And as a class, we can start talking about the data. There you can actually see where we threw it. That's my throw right there. That's it's flying through the air. Amos's catch, a little deceleration there. The cool thing about it, though, is acceleration is a tough thing to teach. People don't necessarily understand acceleration very well. So if I ask kids, if I throw this up in the air, the instant it leaves my hand, what is the acceleration? And how does that change with time? So as I throw it up in the air, the only thing that's pulling it at that point is gravity. So from the instant it leaves my hand to the instant it hits the floor, the only force is gravity, the only acceleration is gravity. So if I take the acceleration and turn it into a sound, well, first thing is I got a cool musical instrument, but the second thing is, listen to the sound. You can hear it's the same sound going up and going down. So the acceleration is always the same. It's 1g pointing downward, unless, of course, you spin it, in which case your centrifugal acceleration sends you crazy. So why is this not in more classrooms? Well, it's hard. I'm asking teachers to teach material they don't understand, they've never learned, they're not engineers. I'm asking them to teach it in a way they're not used to. It's open-ended, there is no right answer, it takes a while, people fail, there are tears, there's excitement. It's all part of the learning process. When you learn to ski, there are tears there too, works quite well. And it's loud, teaching through chaos, so it's tough. So how can we help? How can we get kids the opportunity to engineer in the classroom? And that's where we have STOMP. STOMP is a program that was originally funded out of the Tisch College. This is the idea of let's put some of our college students into the classroom and have them actually help teachers make this change. And what we found is not only is it great for the teachers that get the second set of hands, it's also outstanding for our students. As one said, I learned as much as the kids. We have a number of alumni, one here in the front row who's just graduated from MIT and will go on to great things. We have a woman who started her own company, couples that have gone on to become teachers, and a number that are still engineers, but they understand the importance of getting involved in their classroom. So I'd like to end with what can you do? And there are a number of things you can do. You can get involved with your school system. You can start a STOMP program. We have companies that have STOMP programs. Over 300 Stompers go into classrooms every day across the US somewhere. You can support Stompers, or you can just generally raise awareness of engineering. And the movie you see to the right is one of our favorite things we do in STOMP, which is I give you 64 pieces. I give you a program, single program. Everybody has the same program, the same 64 pieces. How many different ways can you move forward? And you can see there are a lot of different ways that you can put these pieces together, and that's what pushes the whole creativity side. You can see that some of them are a little less effective at moving forward than others, but anyway. So thank you very much.